Hello, welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Today we're going to take another look at a puzzle that appeared in the World Sudoku Championship, I should say. And we're lucky enough today to host a puzzle by Silke Berendes, who is one of the most famous puzzle authors from Germany. She has done many of the rounds for the 24-hour championship that happens in Hungary every year. And in fact invented the compass puzzle. Now probably about a month ago, I did a video on the compass puzzle, and Silke invented that type of puzzle, so that's fantastic. I think that would be my ambition in puzzling world, would be to create my own puzzle that gains such acceptance that it becomes sort of the standard of the form. Now on screen what we've got is an anti-diagonal Sudoku, so don't be confused. Sometimes when you see these lines in the grid, that indicates that we need to have the numbers from 1 to 9 on the diagonals as well. That is not the case in this puzzle. In this case, what it means is that on these diagonals we have to only have a maximum of 3 different digits. Now they can be different digits for each diagonal, but on this diagonal, let's say that, it's not going to be this, but let's say it's 2, 3 and 4, you'd have to have 2, 3 and 4 in these squares, 2, 3 and 4 in these squares, 2, 3 and 4 in these squares. On this diagonal it doesn't need to be 2, 3 and 4. In that case it could be 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, etc. They don't have to be in order, it could be 8, 7, 6, but they have to be the same 3 digits. So this is called anti-diagonal. This appeared, I think, in the World Cup semi-final part of the World Sudoku Championship, and I'd estimate, according to the email that I received, that this is about a 4-minute puzzle for the best in the world. So I suspect it will take us longer than that, but never mind, I'm sure we'll enjoy it. Silke's puzzles are always a treat. So if you want to have a go, click on the link under the video. That will take you to our web page, where you should see exactly what I'm seeing and be able to have a look. Now, I don't have any great tips for this, apart from I'm going to put a 1 in there straight away. I guess one of the things that we could do is, if we look at a block like there, and we can see we've got the numbers 1, 5 and 9 in this block, so we know that there cannot be a 1, 5 and 9 anywhere down there. And that might lead to some restrictions. I mean, if we... No, it's not going to be great on 9s. 1s and 5s aren't very interesting either. Well, I suppose 1s are quite interesting, actually. Let's look at 1s, because there's 1s in these corners as well. So there can be no 1 in any of those squares, any of these diagonal squares in the centre. So actually I think that square has to be a 1 because of these ones here. So there's a number in the grid using the diagonal constraint. Now let's look at this 5 and 9. That's where my eyes would be drawn to. So we know there's no 9 in those squares. We have a 9 up here, so there is no 9 there either. So I could, in fact, I could have got this a different way, just using this 9, the fact that the 9 would be forced over into the left-hand side. But I did it using the diagonal constraint. Let's look at 2s and 7s as well up here. So there's no 2s and 7s in any of those squares. So you can see that 7 therefore must be in one of those 2 positions. Ah, that locks a 7 onto a diagonal. So that means there must be a 7 along those squares. And you can see we have a 7 there and a 7 there. So that's going to give us our second 7. And that must be a 7 as well, because actually there are quite a few 7s in the grid already. That's going to mean that's a 7. Oh, no, whoops, didn't mean to do that. There must be a 7 in one of those 2 squares. There's a 7 up here, look, because we can unwind the pencil marks, so there must be a 7 in one of those 2 positions. Now 5s, by simple Sudoku, we can place a 5 in the grid. Ah, now that's useful. Look, using these 5s here and this 5, we know there's a 5 in one of those 2 positions, but we're able to scan upwards. Now, because of this 5 here, there can be no 5s on the diagonals, on this diagonal, so that cannot be a 5. And that means that we get a 5 and a 9 Now 2's as well. This 2, look, there's no 2 in any of those squares, and we have a 2 there. So that must be a 2. That means there's a 2 in one of these two positions, and that means there is no 2 on this diagonal. Now, can we do anything with that? So there's no 2 in either of those squares. Yes, and look, we have a 2 there and a 2 there. It's a lovely puzzle, this. It has a real... there's a real beauty to the way that the sort of patterns unwind. Now you can see we can put 6, 8 and 9 into these 3 squares now, and therefore we need, what's it going to be, 3 and 4 into those highlighted squares to complete the column, and there's a 3 over there. So that must be a 4, that must be a 3. There's a 3 in one of these two squares because of these 3's. And we've got a 4 now on this diagonal, so there must be a 4 either here or here. Let's pencil mark that in, and a 4 either there or there. We don't have very many 4's in the grid at all, so what else can we do? I suppose we should use this 3. We know there's a 3 on this diagonal, so there must be a 3 on one of those two squares, and a 3 in one of these two positions because of this 3 here. And in fact, 3's are a little bit interesting. Those two 3's are quite nice, because that's going to mean we can't put a 3 in any of those squares in this box. So that means this square is a 3. Oh, and that's nice. That means this square is a 3. And we need 6 and 8 to complete this box, so let's put that in. And now along here we need a 1, a 4 and a 7. My phone's buzzing at me, but I'll ignore that. 1, 4, 7, and we can remove the 1 from this one, the 7 from this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 9 into these squares. So I wonder whether there's a naked single there. Let's just have a quick look. Did I say 4, 5, 7, 9? Well, 4, 5, 7 there. That square is a 9. Now, does that tell us anything helpful? I feel like it does, but I'm not seeing it. 4, 5, 7 now. This square must be a 4 or a 5, and it can't be a 5 because there's a 5 there, look. So actually this square, the central square, is a 4. Now that's often the most important square, because now I need to put a 4 in one of those two squares on the other diagonal, and we have a 4 here. So that's a 4. That must be a 4. That means this is a 4. There's a 4 in one of those two squares, and this square now must be a 7. That's the only option for the square. 4. And this must, oh, this is going to be good now. 7, 3 here. This square should be a 5, I think. This 3 is now no longer valid, so this one must be the 3. That gives me a 3 on the right as well. You can see in this row we need 2, 6 and 8, and there's a 2 hiding up there. So this square is a 6 or an 8, which means this is the only place for a 2 in row 6. 4, 6 and 8 now into these squares. Well, you can see there's only one valid position for 4. That's a 6, 8 pair. I was just having a look to see whether I could tell for sure which way round this was. I'm not sure that I can yet. I mean, I know this square, obviously, this square needs to be a 6 or an 8 now, and this square needs to be a 6 or an 8, and there is an 8 there. So that disambiguates this lead diagonal. We need 6's, so we can go 6, 6, 8 like that. This should be a 6 now. Now we can highlight 6's into this square. Now this square now needs to be an 8 on the other diagonal, so that means we get the 8 up there, and this must be an 8. This is a 9 now. Oops, that's not a 9 as well. That would not work. Now we can fill in the value of this square. That must be a 6. That means that's an 8. That's an 8. That's a 6. It's a gorgeous puzzle. Gorgeous puzzle. 2, 5 here. Now this square ought to be a 9. That means this is a 9. That means over here we need a 6. These two squares need to be 2 and what's the other one there? 8. Yeah, we can do that now. 8 and 2 like that. 2's into these two squares. So we've got an interesting pattern there. Look at that. The 4's, once we crack the 4's, that's going to crack the 2's, that's going to crack the 5's. So maybe it's the 8 and the 9 here that we need that's going to unwind everything. As you can see, we can get that 6. This is an 8 or a 9. Now this 8 is going to give me 8, 9 like that. Now that must be a 9. That must be a 1, 1, 4, 4, 2, 2, 5, 5, check. Looks good. So that's how to do that puzzle. That was a beautiful puzzle. Beautiful puzzle. I loved that. We were a bit slower than 4 minutes, but I was talking and explaining the rules, so that's my excuse. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sure you did. If you did, maybe give us a like, maybe let us know in the comments what you thought. And thanks very much to Silke for yet another superb Sudoku puzzle. We'll be back soon with another edition, Cracking the Cryptic.